Let's take a look at the scientific method in connection with the reading this week, Trees for Peace. Let's review the steps of the scientific method. Step 1, make an observation. Step 2, ask a question. Step 3, create a hypothesis. Step 4, test your hypothesis. And finally, step 5, draw a conclusion. So with our reading about Wangari Maathai and Trees for Peace, let's see what she did that follows the scientific method. So what observations did she make? Well, she went away to college and she comes home and she observes that her fig tree is gone. It had been cut down to make room to plant coffee and tree crops. She also notices some of the challenges the women in her area are facing. They have to travel farther and farther to find water for their families, firewood for fuel. They're struggling to give their children nutritious meals. All of these things she's observing. So the second thing she does is she asks a question. She's realizing that maybe planting trees could help the women. So the question could be, could planting trees solve their problems? So she decides to create a hypothesis. And remember, a hypothesis is an educated guess about what we think will happen based on our experiment. So she starts thinking, well, they could sell the trees and earn money. The trees would retain and purify the water. They would provide firewood for fuel, and the fruit could supplement the family meals. So she creates this hypothesis of maybe these things will help the women. So the next step is she tests her hypothesis. So the first thing she does is they plant 7 trees in their village, but 5 of the trees die, which is part of the testing process. But she doesn't give up, so she teaches the women how to care for the trees. She teaches them to sell them, and as they continue, there's more and more trees planted, and now their work is being recognized and called the Green Belt Movement. So finally, she draws a conclusion based on her experiment. So she decides that planting trees did put the land back the way it was before. Trees protect the land, and so they're able to solve the problem that the women were having. So what does this mean for your GED? You do not need to memorize the steps in the scientific method. But if you see those steps of the scientific method, you need to be able to recognize them and kind of have a basic understanding of what they mean, and be able to make comparisons and connections between the scientific method and the readings that they give you on the GED.